Hello.
Hello.
Why don't you come right up here where I can see you? Well, welcome to the party. I can see some of you may have already had a cocktail or two. My name is Julia Murphy Whitehead Hungerford. You may call me Julia. Though I was born in 1897, I came of age in the 1920s, the roaring 20s. Now, before I tell you some of my somewhat scandalous escapades, let me tell you a little bit about the rest of the family here at the Murphy Mausoleum. I'd introduce you, but they're all out and about tonight. Our mausoleum is an exquisite example of neoclassical design. You can tell from the columns. And the stained glass angel inside is just lovely. Not dedicated to me, I assure you, but to my father. Both my parents are buried here. Both are children of Irish immigrants. Now, my father, John Murphy, he was the vice president of Trust Company Bank of Georgia, and into steel, cotton oil, and railroads, of course. In 1918, a newspaper called Papa, Atlanta's leading capitalist, which is why we had rather a lot of money. Now, my mama, Julia Gatkins Murphy, she bought our plot here at Oakland. I must ask you a favor regarding Mama. If you see her, don't tell her about the champagne. She disapproves of liquor and men and parties and really fun of any kind. So let's keep it our secret, shall we? My sister Catherine is also buried here. Katie, we called her, even though she hated it, or perhaps because she hated it. And two of her husbands are here, the Riley brothers, Jim and Julian. They were always mad about Katie, so she married them both. Not at the same time, of course. Now, shall I tell you about my travels out west?
Yeah.
Or shall we chat about my French finishing school in New York?
No.
Or shall we get to the fun? When I married a playboy who built one of Atlanta's most famous mansions for me. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Cocky Pate Whitehead, he was the charming man I married in 1922. He'd seen me speeding down Peachtree Street with the top down in the middle of winter, wearing my favorite fur coat, and immediately fell in love with me. Now, Cocky's family was rich with a capital R. His father and a partner had bought the bottling rights to Coca-Cola in 1899 for $1. Cocky lived his life on the society pages, and our wedding was big news. We sailed in Mauritania for our 2-year honeymoon, which was grand since Prohibition had just been passed in the U.S. Now, if you've never been to Paris to drink champagne, well, you probably have. If you've never been to Paris to drink champagne, you simply must go. After we came back, Cocky built me a house on West Paces Ferry called the Villa Juanita. Acres of land, a swimming pool, and 10-foot high fences for my beloved dogs, even though we joked it was to keep Mama from snooping about. Our parties lasted for days. Everybody called it the Great Gatsby House. Bootleggers and debutantes danced the Charleston till dawn. During one such bash, Mama sent my sister to spy on me. When she arrived, Katie found Cocky in the driveway fighting with a taxi driver who brought him home from the Kentucky Derby. Later, Mama sent someone else to find Katie, who had joined the party. But then, after 7 years, Cocky ran off with a dancer, and I sued for divorce. The newspaper printed a picture of him on his yacht with the girl attached to his side like a barnacle. Bon voyage, Cocky. In 1932, I married Osgood Robert Hungerford. Now, he was penniless, but I didn't need more money. We traveled. In Monte Carlo, we met the actress Fanny Bryce. I hear they made a musical about her called Funny Girl, and she truly was. And we met the actor Maurice Chevalier, who made a pass at me, and Lady Mountbatten, who made a pass at Osgood. Or perhaps that was the other way around. Anyway, in 1935, after a series of dull illnesses, I died at the age of 38 and left the Villa Juanita to darling Katie. Now, she founded the Catherine John Murphy Foundation and the Catherine Murphy Riley Outpatient Diagnostic Center at Piedmont Hospital. Well, that was named in her honor. Katie lived in our villa until her death in 1985, though I'm sure her parties were tamer than when Conky and I were skinny dipping at midnight and sleeping till noon. But now, I know you have to meet some of the other charming guests at our Oakland soiree. Au revoir. And remember, don't tell Mama about the champagne. Good night.
Hey. See. How are y'all doing this evening? Great. Come on in, squeeze on in. We have a cement couch from IKEA behind you. You can take a seat if you please. I think it's from the 1300s. So squeeze on in. Hopefully everybody's warming up together. Nice cups, coffee, wine, water. Great. All right. Well, come in. Welcome to my office. I am Henry Rucker, and I have a question for you. Do you want to navigate your way forward and get some clout? Do you want to leave a profound impact on your community like I do? Well, if you are here to follow in my footsteps and have the sort of success to leave people speaking your name for decades to come, then you've came to the right place. I'm going to share with you 5 essential life lessons that led to my success as a barber, business owner, and most importantly, the director of the Internal Revenue's office here in Atlanta from 1897 to 1911. Are you all ready to begin?
Yeah.
Lesson number 1. Family is the most important thing. My parents, Edward and Betsy, my wife, Ann, and all 8 of my children are buried here at Oakland Cemetery. We never forgot who we were or where we came from. Our family is our strength, and all that I've achieved in life is because of my family. My parents and I were emancipated slaves who took advantage of their opportunities. There was a brief time period after the Civil War, which y'all call Reconstruction, where we Negroes were given political power and social status. I took advantage of these opportunities and went to day school because my family and I were determined to do better. And that, my friends, is lesson number 2. Be determined in the face of adversity. After the Civil War, they said a black man should sharecrop or serve a white family. But I decided to become a barber. And I bought a barbershop off of Decatur Street. Me and Alonzo Hernan, this country's first black millionaire, who also owned a barbershop off of Auburn Avenue, competed fiercely to build our businesses and better ourselves. And that is lesson 3, by the way. Get a cohort to run with, because you can't do it on your own. Like those that will become my peers, I matriculated through Atlanta University and became an upstanding citizen in the city. I was elected to political office in 1880, 15 years after slavery was ended, as a delegate to the Republican National Convention in Chicago, after James Garfield was elected. Now, this may not seem impressive to y'all, but this was a time period of tremendous change. The 15th Amendment gave Negro men the right to vote, and I was ready. This was the party of Abraham Lincoln, and I vowed to do my part. Which brings me to lesson number 4. make a positive impact on your community. I became appointed the collector of the Internal Revenue Office in 1897 here in Georgia. I served 4 very long terms, and I was the longest serving African American in that position in history. Now, I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. They say once you're in control of money, you gain control over the city. And I can surely testify to that. I was able to hire countless African Americans into positions of importance throughout the city. And together we made a big difference in our city. Which brings me to lesson number 5, my friends. Do not be afraid to speak out. I even had a disagreement with the one and only Booker T. Washington himself. He felt the Negro should lessen demands for equality in exchange for education. They called this the Atlanta Compromise, and I totally disagree. We might as well be enslaved again, if that's the case. And I responded the same way when a race riot swept through the city in 1910. I spoke up because we had a right to feel safe. And we told Atlanta's Mayor Woodward that he needed to step in and do something about the issue. But they told me I'd become too powerful and too vocal. I almost lost my status as an advisor, and they told me to get in line, and I got right in line. Enough to keep my final term. But unfortunately, President Taft refused to reappoint any Southern blacks in the city in 1910. But lo and behold, by this time my family was well known, and I had become one of the wealthiest African Americans in Atlanta. I had also established the Rucker building on Sweet Auburn Avenue, the only and first black office building in Atlanta. This was a symbol of our success, our legacy, and everything we worked hard for our culture. Now, I know you all have a very, very busy evening ahead of you, and it's time to send you on your way. But I want you all to remember one simple rule. If you want to have great success, you can have it in whatever you want to do if you follow my steps. Isn't that all what it's all about? Great. Now, you all have a wonderful evening, and remember, if you ever need me, I'm here whenever you need it. Have a good night.
In an African American section. What we're about to walk into is the African American section, and it's been under a restoration plan. So you'll see a lot of new plantings and grass and pathways and things like that. But what you won't see are a lot of markers, and that's because it was an African American custom to use like a wooden cross or like a piece of a wooden headboard or something like that for as a marker. But obviously they're not going to last that long. So while it appears that there are empty spots, there are actually burials there, but they just didn't have a marker remaining.
Step lively now. There's no one dead around here but me. Step lively. Come. You're from the land of the living, right? Good to see you. Come on around. Come and visit anytime. Gather round, a lady doesn't shout. A true Southern belle gets her point across with poise and excellence. Hello, I'm Marie Antoinette Wolff Taylor. I was born in 1893 and brought up right here in Atlanta. Now, being refined doesn't mean being quiet or docile, because I use my voice and action to advocate for the people of my race, especially the women. Ask any of my sorrows of Alpha Kappa Alpha Society Incorporated. My parents were both professors at Atlanta University, and they instilled in me a love of education and a commitment to faith. I attended the Star School, the first school for African American children in Atlanta. My family aspired to be a part of the talented 10th. You've heard of the talented 10th. Well, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, a leader of our race, argued that blacks needed higher education to reach their full potential. He said, the Negro race will be saved by its exceptional men. Well, I agree with Dr. Du Bois, but shouldn't men and women lead the charge? Well,
To better my community and reach my potential, I attended Atlanta University. Then, an opportunity came to study in the preparatory department of Howard University in Washington, D.C. They had just begun accepting women, and I jumped at the chance. Nestled in Minor Hall, I met wonderful friends like Ethel Hedgeman Lyle and the Burke sisters and many more, but here more than ever, I needed to use my voice because we women were a minority on campus, and we needed to stick together, almost like sisters. Now, Ethel had this idea to form a society for women on campus to nurture career aspirations and to encourage one another to use our voices. She recruited 8 of us, but I was the one who went to the new President Thurkfield and encouraged him to make it a full sorority. So in 1908, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority was established. The first Greek letter organization founded by and for African American women. I was the first secretary, so I worked on the Constitution and the bylaws. Our colors were salmon pink and apple green. And the ivy was our motto, our emblem, because it represented being able to endure through rough terrain and thrive, and it represented lasting and strong friendships. When I graduated Howard University magna cum laude, I attended Chauffeur Training Institute for Social Studies, for Social Services in Columbus, Ohio. Now at Howard, I was among my own race. Here, I was the only African American student. Needless to say, it was a change. I studied religion and social work and returned to Atlanta when I accepted a job at the First Congregational Church. Mind you, I didn't mind getting my hands dirty. I knew being an advocate was going to be hard work, but I also knew that my work was going to help others, expanding the legacy of my parents. I taught night classes to young women who did not have my economic privilege, teaching them to read and sew and to be women of virtue. Oh, I loved working with these girls. It reminded me of Ethel and the ladies of AKA and our community, women supporting women. My community continued to grow. I worked on Community Chest, which is now United Way, the NAACP, and served on the executive board of the Carrie Steele Pitts Orphanage, which still runs today. When that fire broke out that burned through Sweet Auburn in the old 4th Ward, I was one of 2 persons to help the Red Cross. And 2 years after that terrible fire, well, I married my dear Alfred. He was a well-known physician, and we had a beautiful daughter, Alfred Marie Taylor. And I wanted to create a better world for her and other young black girls. So in 1923, I helped establish the graduate chapter, Kappa Omega, right here in Atlanta. You've met Mr. Rucker, right? Mm-hmm. Well, his wife Alice was a dear friend and a co-founder of the Alpha Kappa chapter. Today, there are over 300,000 members worldwide, women, using their time and efforts to better their community and to be forces for change in this world. Well, I know you got to move on, but all of you remember, use your voice for change and be of assistance to all mankind. And ladies, remember always, empowered women empower women. Thank you for sharing my story.
Everybody doing all right tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
Nobody scared here in the cemetery at night in the dark?
No.
Have mercy. All right, welcome everyone. Everybody come around nice and close. My name is Dr. Jenny Norris, although in my day it was Mrs. Dr. Jenny Norris. Always Mrs. first, then Doctor. But since I was Atlanta's first female physician, I suppose people didn't know what to think of me. Now let me look at you. Your eyes look clear. You seem to have wholesome complexions. I'm guessing you're not here for a checkup, maybe just to hear a little local history. Okay, just be aware, we could be interrupted at any moment. Emergencies are a normal part of my day, even in the afterlife. Now, I was born Jenny Newman in 1861, and I need to explain something about history. It can be a mystery with often conflicting clues. For example, I was definitely born in 1861 in Tennessee, or possibly Georgia, depending on what you've read. And in the 1870 census, I was living here in Atlanta with my two younger brothers, William and Wallace. However, William and Wallace also happened to be the names of my two husbands. That can be confusing. And my first husband, William, hardly left a trace of himself in the pages of history, and sometimes the less said the better. After our little son Cliff died in 1884 and William was no longer in my life, I went back to being Miss Jenny Newman. And then in the 1900 census, I was married to Wallace Norris, but his name was misspelled. Another confusing clue. One thing I can tell you for certain, both my parents, Captain William G. Newman and Julia Frances Logan Newman, reside here at Oakland. Father was a veteran of the Mexican War and the Civil War and was twice wounded. He also served on the Atlanta City Council and was head of a committee exploring the innovative concept of free public schools. My interest in medicine may have started with his stories about being wounded in battle, but I did always wonder why there weren't female doctors delivering babies. I mean, in the 19th century, a lady didn't even show her ankles, and yet she was expected to let a man into the delivery room? And let's not forget, pregnancy and childbirth could be deadly. Look around Oakland and you'll see many young ladies who perished in childbirth, sometimes buried along the tiny graves of their infants. I wanted to help change that. Of course, there were some people who thought it was inappropriate for me, a woman, to become a doctor, but I let my success shine through the fog of their prejudice. Progress is made by actions, my friends, not opinions. And in 1891, I was one of 7 graduates of the Women's Medical College of Georgia, and I began practicing here in Atlanta. In 1900, I married Wallace, and we lived and worked over in Grant Park on Oakland Avenue. Wallace joined me in the practice, but you won't find any record of his medical training. It was not uncommon in my day for men to merely apprentice in medicine. That's kind of scary.
It's Wallace.
Everybody still okay? Oh. Imagine a doctor who only had on-the-job training. But Wallace assisted me in so many ways, and he stood by my side, even when we were arrested. Did I not mention the arrest? In 1918, we were arrested after a young woman died in our care. We were accused of performing an illegal operation in an attempt to save her life. Perhaps I was reckless, going to any lengths to save her, but that was my job. I tell you, it was hard enough losing a patient after surgery, and then to be taken to court was devastating. Blessedly, we were found not guilty, and our practice survived, but it was difficult. However, as a doctor, one must persevere, and I did. I estimate I delivered 3,000 babies, 10 sets of twins. Wallace and I never had children of our own, but we adopted a little girl, Marion. She was 10 years old when she came into our lives, and she often came with us to the office. I was never certain, though, if she was really interested in medicine or just there for the lollipops. Perhaps that's why y'all are here. Well, my family grave is in need of some tender love and care, and this whole East Hill of Oakland, it's their next big restoration project. And anyone donating to the cause will be rewarded, and you'll get to take one of these sweet delights with you. So if you care to contribute, you're welcome to drop your donation in my satchel there and help yourself to one of these lovely, delicious lollipops. And I want to thank y'all for stopping by and for your generosity. And also remember, I am always here. No appointment needed.
Hey y'all.
Hi.
It's a perfect time for a break. My name is Stephen B Oakland, and I was in the marble business. In fact, I was a top seller of Italian, Egyptian, and American statuary. You know, urns, mantelpieces, monuments, and some of the finest tombstones. Now don't worry, this one don't have your name on it, at least not yet. I was born in Vermont in 1815, came south when I was in my 20s, and I became a real Southerner. I even picked up the accent because it was good for business. I was a born salesman. I had a talent for telling you the truth without being completely honest. Made me a natural for politics. I ran for city council and won easily. Now, if we're going to talk about honesty here tonight, don't believe everything these dead folks tell you. I mean, just because they've moved on in life, don't make them all angels. Now, you keep an eye out for that Redwine fella. You'll know when you meet him. He's a real smooth talker. But you better keep your hand on your wallet and your date. Now, of course, as a salesman, I did a fair amount of sweet talking with the ladies. Even persuaded a beautiful young woman to become my wife, though I wasn't much to look at. We bought property up in Cobb County, had more than 200 acres, with a house there that survived the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain, led by that Sherman fellow. While I was off being a sharpshooter for the southern side, Union soldiers used my home as a hospital. And I hear tell today it's used for fancy parties and such. You can find my home very close to downtown Marietta. It's called the William McAdoo House, named for the 46th Secretary of the Treasury, who served from 1913 to 1918. It's named for him because he was born in that house. Now, even my skill with words, I couldn't out-talk death. He came for me in 1903. I was 87 years old when they buried me here at Oakland, up close to the front gate. I sometimes think back to when I first came south. I mean, this town was nothing but a handful of wooden buildings spread along red dirt roads. I mean, you'd have a bear walking across your front yard and there'd be a bobcat sitting out on the back stoop. But those steam locomotives and automobiles changed that. But you know what don't change? The circle of life and the market for marble headstones. Once a salesman, always a salesman. And since we're talking about headstones, did you know you can still be buried here at Oakland? Yep. I mean, just call them up on those little phones that you carry around with you, and they'll tell you all about it. Now, of course, I'm not going to be around to make you a headstone, but you're welcome to come visit anytime, alive or otherwise. Thank you for stopping by. Enjoy your walk, and good night.
Here he is.
You were just talking so much.
Good evening, sir. How are you? They didn't know it was going to be a long hoof from the obelisk, did they? No pun intended. I know, she's beautiful. Everybody likes to stop, look, take a picture. She doesn't talk, I do. We'll gather around. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for dropping by. That's what you get for working with an animal. Is everybody having a good time tonight?
Yes.
Well, I know I am, and I think it's because, well, isn't Oakland a wonderful part of this city?
Yes.
My name is Richard Peters, and some people say that I was born ambitious. Well, I like to be number one. I was born in 1810 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My mother said that my ambition came from being the second of 10 children, so I was always trying to earn the respect of being the eldest, so I was always trying very hard to be the best at everything. I am proud to say that I led the campaign to change the name of this city to Atlanta. I mean, can you imagine this? Oh, excuse me. This city was still named Marthasville? Now that's a sleepy little town. But Atlanta, that is the name of a bustling metropolis. Now, even my horse here is named Champion. Beautiful specimen, is she not? She and many of the animals that I raised on my farm up in Gordon County were state fair prize winners. I had the best Brahman bulls, the best Devon cows. I had blue ribbon winning Angora goats. As a matter of fact, I think you know the Angora goat as being like a cashmere goat with those long flowing coats. I was the first U.S. citizen to import Angoras from Turkey. I paid $1,000 a goat, which in today's money is like $27,000 a goat. Sounds kind of crazy, but I was the first to do it. It was worth every penny. Now, I didn't intend to be or become a city-fied businessman. No, when I was 11 years old, my family moved by covered wagon 100 miles west of Philadelphia to begin a life in farming, and I was really excited about learning about farming, making maple syrup, raising cattle. But my mother, she had a different idea. She was set on me getting a formal education. But when I found out that they were going to send me off to a boarding school, I took off through the woods in my bare feet. So they caught up with me and packed me off to school the next day, dressed in my uncle's hand-me-down suit. But it was education that soothed my ambitious temperament and my natural curiosity. I became fascinated in the mechanical arts, and thanks to a recommendation from then famous architect and engineer William Strickland, I began to take classes at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, named, of course, for America's foremost scientist, Benjamin Franklin. That doesn't really answer the question on how I came to be barefoot one day and a businessman the next day, or how I got from Pennsylvania down here to Georgia. Well, I must have had a head for engineering because I went to work on the railroads, and in the 1830s, the railroads were the future of America. I worked hard and rose up through the ranks, reinvested a lot of my money back into the transportation industry. But as Champion here would tell you, if Champion here could talk, horses were still the mainstay of travel during that time. And so I spent a little money and I formed my own stagecoach line. That is what brought me down here to Georgia in 1844. So I made Atlanta my permanent home by 1848, and I married the lovely Mary Jane Thompson. Mary Jane and I are buried here together at Oakland. But I was still a young man. I was only 38 years old, had a head full of engineering and a heart full of ambition, and I wanted to do everything. I founded Atlanta's first steam-powered plant, steam-powered factory, and also established the first street railway system. You hear MARTA back there? Think trolley cars, a precursor to your MARTA. And I even built the city's first professional baseball field. We charged 25 cents for a patron to come watch a game. Not the ladies, they got in free. And despite my initial reaction, I did grow to have a great appreciation for education. As a matter of fact, I donated all of the land that made it possible to create and build what some of you Georgia Bulldog fans might call the North Avenue Trade School, but for more learned individuals, it is the Georgia Institute of Technology. Go Jackets. I know what you're thinking. I'm up here just bragging away on myself, and my mother would shame me for pride, but I am proud. I'm proud of the part that I played in the development of this city. Now, I died in 1889, but if you're sitting in the Fox Theater watching a play, listening to a concert, or maybe you're across the street having a drink on the veranda of the Georgian Terrace Hotel, you could raise a glass in my memory because you were basically sitting on the property that used to belong to me. And because of my love of nature, I named some of the streets in those neighborhoods after trees: cypress, myrtle, juniper. And not far from that area either, you might know of the grand Atlanta mansion known as Ivy Hall. Well, Ivy Hall sits up on the right as you're heading north on Piedmont Avenue out of Atlanta. It's a perfect example of American Queen Anne design, those beautiful wraparound porches. My son Edward built that house in 1883 when Ponce de Leon was just a muddy path heading off to the east. Today it's owned by the Savannah College of Art and Design. Now, y'all have been a very attentive and patient audience tonight. Well, I've sat up here and talked pretty much endlessly about myself, but please don't judge me vain. Ambitious, yes. Interested in everything. Like your modern scientists, Mr. Einstein said, I don't have any special talents. I am just passionately curious. Now, Champy and I are going to miss your company tonight, but aren't you curious about what's coming next? Thank you all for coming by and for supporting this wonderful part of the city. Have a great night. Stay warm. Come back and see us in the daytime.
Stay warm. So. Gather around, folks. There's plenty of room. Remember, the closer you huddle, the warmer you'll be. All right, folks. Just a couple more. What a good-looking crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lewis Parks Redwine. Though in life I was known by many names. Handsome, charming, flirt, and scoundrel. Now, I know that Marbleman Oatman warned you about me, but I assure you I am a perfectly decent fellow. Well, except for the stolen millions, of course. My father was the respectable Dr. C.L. Redwine. He did his medical training at New York University before returning south to marry my mother, Miss Sarah Clara Glenn. I was their firstborn, arriving in 1858 in Noonan, Georgia. Unfortunately, my mother died when I was just 8 years old. Heartbreak at such an age, it hardens you. Perhaps that's when I began to seek pleasure rather than respectability in life. After my mother's death, my father, he remarried and he moved to Atlanta, where he opened up a popular drugstore and soda shop on Marietta Street. He was also on the board of the Atlanta Medical College, which later became Emory University School of Medicine. I, however, was left in Noonan with an uncle. Well, that just wouldn't do. So as soon as I could, I came here to live at the famous Kimball House Hotel. I was immediately swept up into Atlanta society alongside the Grants of Grant Park and the Inmans of Inman Park. I joined the Piedmont Driving Club and the Capital City Club. Last year, you may remember that Joseph Brown Connolly fellow here started off the evening. He founded the Cotillion Club, and well, I was a member there too. Endless parties. My personal life swirled with rumors linking me romantically to everyone in town. Everyone. Even my best friend, Thomas Cobb Jackson. Well, being a playboy, that is an expensive pastime. So my father, he was relieved when I got a proper job working at the Gate City National Bank. Well, that is until they found a slight discrepancy in the books. Mysterious withdrawal made by yours truly of, about $25,000, which is $300,000 today. And a new name was added to my reputation. Embezzler. Well, the manager, he sent for me straight away, but I had already slipped out the front door. Soon more money was found missing, about $3 million in today's currency. The bank was wrecked, forced to close its doors. Society was shocked, and I was on the run. And then Tom Cobb killed himself. Some say he was distraught over the death of a close friend. Others blamed me and assumed that he was part of the scheme. Well, Tom, he wasn't here to deny it, and I was nowhere to be found. I wish I could say that I was hiding in a fancy Parisian hotel, but I was in a dusty boarding house on the West End. That is until the landlady turned me in for the reward. So mortifying. It's not like I was some common criminal. Perhaps I thought that I would just give it all back. Or perhaps I did it for the thrill. Or for love. Several of my lady friends were investigated. One was even arrested while they searched her home. But they never found the money. They were certain that I had accomplices. But I never said a word. So, I went to prison. I can't recommend it. The food is terrible and the outfit is unflattering. While detained, I received a large inheritance from yet another lady friend, which got tongues wagging about hush money. Then, in a twist that might surprise you, in 1897 I was pardoned by President William McKinley. The Atlanta Constitution wrote that I awoke one morning with the great doors of iron unbolted. All this, of course, due in part to the efforts of my good father, who even arranged to send me a newly tailored garment so that I may re-enter the world in style. The police followed me around certain that I would lead them to the cash, but they never found a nickel. Unfortunately, prison takes its toll on a gentleman's health. 3 years later, I died in Louisiana and was brought back here to Oakland. Speculation continued about my innocence or guilt, but most of all about my mysterious partners in crime. Now, I may be an embezzler, but I am still a gentleman, and I took that secret to my grave, alongside with the location of all that cash. And maybe it's, still in the floorboards of a rambling mansion in Grant Park or Inman Park. Maybe I took it back to where it all started. I'm married. What's that? Oh, seems that we're out of time, folks. I sure do appreciate you coming by. Hope you enjoyed the tour. Do stop by anytime now. Thank you.
Again, I had said earlier about the funding for the restoration and all the programs here, so your ticket helped with that immensely tonight. We really appreciate it. I also wanted to talk about, if you've got questions, or if you want to check out the rest of our special events that are coming up throughout the rest of the year, feel free to check out our website. If you're not a member of the foundation yet, I would highly recommend it for next year. If you want to, if for no other reason, you get 2 weeks pre-sale on tickets to Capturing the Spirit, because we sold out of 9,000 tickets in 32 days this year.
Wow. Wow.
So it is pretty hot ticket. I do want to close with a Mexican lore that we like to tell here at Oakland. I mentioned earlier we have 70,000 residents, and Mexican lore has it that a person dies 3 deaths. When the heart stops pumping, when you're buried, and when the last story is told about you. So we say here at Oakland that we have 70,000 stories to tell, because we don't want our residents to pass away. So again, thanks for helping us do that.